Okay. Hello. So, all right.
Good evening.
Yeah. Good evening. So this was Thursday, the 4th of May, 2017. So we're basically, this is a vlog to promote Written in Darkness by Mark Samuels, who's here. I'm Quentin S. Crisp, and I'm
Good evening and welcome.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I'll be interviewing Mark here, and so we're in Bexley Heath, if that's of any interest to anyone, and Written in Darkness by Mark Samuels is due to be released on the 10th of this month, May 2017, and I don't know if that's in focus, but that's the actual book, and at the moment what the image is reversed, so I don't know if it's reversed for the people who can see this, but hopefully not. But anyway, this artwork is by Christopher Con Askew, who's done about 3 other covers for Trauma.
Very good artwork, excellent.
Yeah.
Extremely pleased with it.
Yeah, that's good. And we might talk about the artwork a bit later, perhaps, or we can do it now.
Yeah, I thought the artwork was absolutely magnificent. Obviously, most people would know that it's probably Baron Ungen Sternberg, but there are also other elements in the portraiture that you thought would that were kind of factored in. Who were the other two?
Yes, so
Chris mentioned there were a couple of other.
That's right. So Chris, as well as the conceptual aspect, which is the Baron, as mentioned, who perhaps you can say a little about in a minute. In terms of the pure physical aspect of the face, one of the models is Klaus Kinski, the actor.
Yeah, great actor. Fantastic.
Yeah. And there's also apparently a little hint of Lemmy. The Lemmy
from Motorhead.
Yeah.
That's hardcore rock and roll.
Yeah,
that's what we like to see.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So anyway, so this comes out on the 10th, and
but there's no Hans Heinz Evers in there. Well, we're talking about the scar.
Oh yeah, there's
a big scar down there.
I don't know if people can see that on this image, but there's a dueling scar there.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking of with the dueling scar.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe my sort of appreciation for him is not overrated. But obviously, the Spider, Fairyland, C3, or other stories behind it. Oh, Al Roan is very good. Although I think our friend at the TLO, James, is very keen on The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which actually I haven't read. So, shout out to James.
Yeah. Okay, so
shout out to Justin Isis as well. Yeah. How you doing, mate? Yeah, how you doing, sunshine? I know in the Black Mass you were very keen on me doing this voice, so I'm trying to do it for you now. I'll get back to my usual voice now.
Yeah. Okay. So, basic introduction. So, this is your 5th collection of short fiction, and you've also had published 2 novels, which are The Face of Twilight and more recently A Pilgrim Stranger.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Now, where would you place Written in Darkness in relation to your other work?
I think that the A Call to Greatness is one of my top 5 stories in there.
So that's the opening story.
That's the opening story, yeah. And people always say that you should always put kind of the strongest story, the opening story, at the very front of the book, so that it kind of has a great lead in. And I also like that. I have a fondness for sea stories. So the story You see, I'm going terrible, isn't it? Because I'm awful. I can't remember my own stories. What's the story about the guy who's at sea with the flowers?
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, I know, it's terrible.
My world has no
memories. Well, that's exactly right, yeah. I have no memories, yeah. I mean, I'm terrible because I can't remember the last thing I wrote, and people have such a memory. I think those two stories are probably my two favourite stories of the collection.
Okay, what
I think
about
they're quite strong.
An Hourglass of the Soul?
No, that's okay. Yeah, I mean, there's I was going to say there's a long story behind that, but in a way, it's not a long story. But I wrote that when I met this guy who worked for Apple. I won't tell you what his name was because he won't be. But effectively, I kind of pulled that out of talking with him about his experiences at Apple and the way he was headhunted, and I kind of use that as a pun, into Apple, because he didn't work for Apple before. He worked for another company, which was a little small computer company. He was kind of pulled into that, so I suppose that's where that story came from. But that was written in kind of quite short order. So, but I think certainly my two favourite stories from Written in Darkness are A Call to Greatness and the My World Has No Memories.
Yeah.
He said jogging his memory.
Yeah. So, I mean, in relation to your other work, do you think there's a development, or does it play off previous themes in any way?
I think certainly when it comes to weird fiction, I just do the same old thing, and then people enjoy it or they don't enjoy it. I don't know to what extent I've improved or not improved. I mean, some people have said that I've kind of gained more of my own voice as it's gone on, which I suppose is true. But maybe one of the reasons why the collection like The White Hands was so popular was that all of the influences are very much on display, so people can actually go through that book and actually think, well, okay, I recognise, where this has come from. Whereas later on, maybe people actually think, well, okay, this poor old fellow has got more of his own voice than we recognise. I think it's always hard for an author to kind of put forward a sort of unique vision that he's prepared to talk about aside from influences, simply because it's so natural. It comes to you it comes to you without thinking about it, so you just end up finding your own voice almost by default after a long period of apprenticeship.
Okay. So, I mean, in that sense, we're talking about influences which are perhaps weird fiction or not. I mean, what do you think of the term weird fiction?
I think it's the best term that's available for what well, not necessarily for all that I do, but certainly for the most important part of what I do. But people are always fishing around for the exact term. So there's a term like horror stories or ghost stories, or I'm not so much sure that the label is important as the intent of what the author's trying to get across. I certainly don't think that weird fiction is wholly confined to the macabre or the sinister, or I think there's an essential element of transcendence in it, whether it's transcendence in terms of fear or transcendence in terms of ecstasy. But then that kind of, I suppose that comes back to the thing that one of the writers I've been most influenced by is obviously Arthur Machen, which everybody knows about. So I would certainly, I wouldn't like to limit weird fiction as simply being fiction concerned with fear or terror. I think it's broader than that. I mean, I'm a huge fan of books like Blackwood's Incredible Adventures and Dunsany's work, and so I'd like to kind of, having said that though, I suppose for some reason which I can't quite explain, most of my work does tend to be creepy and sinister and spooky. And
what do you think of the relation between that and the idea of the numinous? I know, for instance, C.S. Lewis goes on about the numinous a bit to some extent. I'm sure you know the way that he talks about this.
Yeah, it's difficult to comment about C.S. Lewis in terms of weird fiction, I suppose.
But you know the thing that he talks about where the way he explains the numinous, and he got this term from, I can't remember the guy's name, something like Otto something.
Otto?
No.
Is he a character in a Bela Lugosi?
Yeah, probably. I would need to look. I would need to look this up now, but
you're well ahead of me on this, Quentin, because I can't. I'd have to kind of get the reference in. So.
Okay, but he got the term from somebody else. But the way he
no, you're right. It factors into the numinous.
Yeah,
I think the whether it's the transcendental turns into something which is horrifying or ecstatic. Yes, I can understand that. But I imagine that C.S. Lewis would be specifically concerned with. Some sort of positive. Although I don't know, did he write any kind of horrible, sinister? I'm trying to remember C.S. I mean, I'm not a big fan of. Well, I'm a big fan of C.S. Lewis in terms of his essays and his writings, his non-fiction writings. But in terms of his fiction, I've never really enjoyed. I mean, I know I should do maybe Out of the Silent Planet, but I find him too didactic.
Okay, yeah. But so the way he talks about the numinous, the way he explains it is, if you're in a room and there's a room next door, the door's closed, but in the room
it's not
next
a tiger.
door, yeah, exactly.
Oh no, I get the reference. I know that's very good. Yes, yeah. No, that's a good and obviously you brought that reference up, so I remember. Yeah, I remember the reference now. No, that's a kind of good. Yeah, that's kind of good.
So for our viewers, the way he explains it is, there's a kind of fear involved, but it's not an everyday fear. So if you're told that in the next room, beyond that door, there's a tiger, you'll feel afraid and you might not want to go through that door. But your fear is basically that there's some physical danger.
Right.
Then he says, now, if you're told in the next room there's a ghost.
Yes. Yeah. So you're moving from something that's possible and is a possible danger to something which is impossible, which is nevertheless a real and present danger, I should say.
Yeah. And then so it goes from the tiger and the ghost, and then of course he moves on to. What if you're then told in the next room there is the ultimate being or something like this? You would feel something like the fear you felt when you're told there's a ghost, if you believed it, of course, but the quality is different again, although you can compare the two.
No, you're right. Yeah, I mean, you would certainly have the same reaction of fear, but I suppose there'd be different types of fear. There would be fear of something which was known, so specifically a tiger, and fear of something which was absolutely transcendental, which would be some entity that you thought could not possibly exist. Well, I'll say that I'm Catholic, so I don't think that. I mean, if the absolute being was in the next room, I think that I died when I was on my way upstairs. So hopefully, rather than downstairs. So.
Okay. But how do you think that the term weird fiction captures what you do, or what does it describe?
I do describe myself as a weird fiction author, but you can. No, I do. I mean, primarily I would regard myself as a weird fiction author. But you can get bogged down with labels, because there used to be a trope wherein people would say, "Oh, are you a horror author?" And if you said, "Oh, well, yes, I am a horror author," which I don't care if somebody calls me a horror or something, that's fine. It was limiting, so that people would be resistant towards it. I know that Ramsey Campbell, the greatest respectful, he always said that, well, you can encompass pretty much everything you want to do, more or less everything you want to do as an author within the horror genre, and it is quite broad, which I accept the term. But some of these things are kind of marketing labels. So obviously he had the gigantic horror boom in the 1980s, but that kind of followed on from commercial success. So maybe there's something in weird fiction where the term at the moment is on the rise, and you have people taking notice of weird fiction, thinking, oh, well, this will be the kind of the next commercial boom. So I don't see it in those terms. I'm quite happy to be described as a weird fiction author, and it is the best term that describes what I do. But I wouldn't. I mean, I like to just think I write fiction.
Yeah. Okay.
So, however, I just write the fiction that I write, and if it happens to fall within a certain category that publishers or critics or fans think, okay, that's how the guy rolls, and that's fine. So, but I don't have a problem with any of these. I certainly wouldn't.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know, or I seem to remember that Thomas Ligotti, for instance, has said that he's quite comfortable with the label horror, that what he writes is basically horror, as Edgar Allan Poe is horror, Lovecraft is horror. I think he said things basically to that effect. I mean, would you... What do you think? Would you say his work is squarely within horror or weird fiction or something like that?
Well, yeah, obviously, I think when he was starting out, he came from a position in the 1980s wherein horror fiction was at its peak. But he operated at a completely different level to most of the people in the 1980s who achieved success through their fiction, because it was commercial success. He did the whole thing through the underground. But I think the thing with Thomas Ligotti is specifically that he was operating according to his own vision of the world, and certainly later on it became clear that he was moving in a direction of a philosophical direction rather than simply writing fiction for commercial gain. I mean, that sounds unfair to certain people. I don't mean to sound unfair to some people, but he was. I mean, he's always been absolutely 100% authentic in everything that he does. That's not to say that one necessarily has to agree with all of his conclusions, but he's absolutely genuine or authentic, and got a huge amount of respect for what he's done. And I still think he is the greatest living weird fiction author, even if I don't agree with his philosophical conclusions. But I suppose I've seen myself slightly different in terms of I tried to write. Well, I'm always drawn towards negativity, but I'm drawn towards it in an aesthetic sense, wherein I think that the stories that I write, certainly that are downbeat weird fiction, come from a particular part of my psyche, but they come from a part that wants to delineate nightmare rather than delineating some sort of philosophical truth. But I don't mean that in any denigrated way to somebody that has a different philosophy to me. Although sometimes I come across that way, but that's just me. I always rub people up the wrong way, inadvertently, not necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, so I know that you've corresponded and so on with Ligotti, but to what extent did he help you early on? For instance, with your first collection,
The White Hand.
Yeah,
he did. I mean, we only corresponded. Well, we corresponded from. I don't know when it was. I think it was about 1999 to about 2000 maybe 2005, via email. But specifically to do with The White Hands, he only really had a big input on. Well, I say big input. It wasn't a huge input, but it was a significant input into a story called Vrolik.
Yes.
Where I remember he read that story and he made certain suggestions which I adopted. But only that story in particular. Although I think the most Ligottian story in The White Hands is probably Mannequins and Aspects of Terror.
Yeah.
So, and the least Ligottian story, which actually I think was the one that he Maybe I enjoyed it most simply because it recognised I'd not freed myself, but I recognised that I was going in a slightly different direction. Was the search for Kryptos? Yeah, which is I say the least Ligotti, but it's probably the most Borgesian. Jorge Luis Borges, which is something that Roger Dobson, who was an old friend of mine, was just take great pride in pronouncing it correctly rather than saying Borges. Did we run out of questions?
No, not yet. No. We have other questions which were posed by members of
Arthur Staz. He was asking about Glyphotech.
Yeah.
When did I leave Glyphotech?
When did you leave Glyphotech?
I never left Glyphotech. No, I did leave Glyphotech. Well, it wasn't based on a specific place of employment that I ever worked at. It was kind of a composite of just working in an office environment. And well, there was a behind the Glyphotech office environment was the movement was somewhat based in reality, in one of those sort of human potential movements.
Yeah,
that's what it came across briefly.
Yes, I know which one, but
it's probably best not to know because a dear friend of mine who that's a long water under the bridge. But I was quite spooked by certain aspects of that. So that was where the whole Glyphotech thing came from. Should we have some Jack Daniels?
Yeah. So.
Yes, no, this was a tribute to our good friend Druidic, Mr. Mundy. God bless you, sir. I hope you're doing well. I hope you see this video. We love you, man.
So. Oops. Say when.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. To you, John.
So cheers. So we took questions from Ligotti online. We solicited for questions from members, and I have some of them written down here, which Mark will.
I've answered all of those. Just getting a lot of it.
No.
Okay, we'll just to race through them.
Okay, so first question: what authors outside of weird fiction have influenced or inspired you?
Recently, or over the whole course of it's not specified, is it?
No, it's not specified.
Recently, my biggest discovery was probably what was surprised with Evil in War.
Okay.
Become a massive Evil in War over the last 5 or 6 years. Huge, absolutely obsessed with Evil in War. Obviously Quizmos, but then that's slightly further back because obviously I was Against Nature. Is I think a fantastic book.
Can we show it?
Oh yes, there's a copy. Yeah, but obviously, I mean, I do like Against Nature and En Route, which I think is. Yeah. I was actually going to, while we were on the subject, I think that might be quite, might kind of fit in with something that might be. Anyway. Quizmos and Evil and War. But I always kind of go down this Catholic route, don't I? So people just think it was only interesting Catholic authors. Trying to think of somebody. Well, I think if I were to start naming names in weird fiction, it would just be the usual suspects. So, but I haven't discovered those writers in the last 5 or so years. I mean, I've grown up with them since I had my first story published in 1988. So I mean, weird fiction is very much in my blood. We only kind of get into the dangerous territory where lots of people who write weird fiction start watching and they want you to name give them shout outs.
But I mean, in terms of those outside
weird fiction. Well, again, I just then wind up with Catholics. Like Baron Corvu, who I adore and love. Baron Corvu. Justin Isis,
Yeah.
who I adore and love.
Mm.
And
Yes.
Quentin Crisp.
Well,
Quentin S. Crisp.
I'm the only one without Catholic credentials there. Well, having said that, if you go back far enough, you might find something.
Well, you're Italian
Yeah.
lineage.
Yeah.
Well, it's in your blood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So next question. How much of a role does the psychogeography of London play in your writing?
Huge at one stage. Huge, because I was speaking to another friend of mine about this, and he said, which Arthur Machen book did you read first of all? And it's a psychogeographical book called The London Adventure. There's a friend of mine called Arthur Stas. I won't give his real name out, but and I said, well, I think that was the very first Machen book that I read, and funnily enough, it gave me an entry point because it's primarily to do with Machen wandering around the streets of London and his reflections on the streets of London and his impressions. And I was doing exactly the same thing, but I was doing it when I was late teens, early 20s, when I first discovered kind of gigantic labyrinth of London and went seeking mysteries in all its streets and so yeah, but psychogeography. I mean, I think it's a shame that it's become not codified, but it's become. Well, I mean, I respect for Ian Sinclair and people like that, but in a way, when it was a secret and it wasn't named and it wasn't codified, it was a bit more exciting. So.
Yeah. Well, I remember when we first met. We went to a pub in a little side alley.
In a side alley? That sounds a bit ropey.
Yeah. But there was some question about whether we could find it or not, but we did.
It wasn't the Mitre.
It was.
Oh, the Mitre. The old Mitre in Ely Place.
Yeah,
that's one of my favourite pubs. It's fantastic. It features In the Face of Twilight. But I think I renamed it to something. I think I called it the Old Sceptre. No, it's a great pub. It's fantastic. Yeah, it dates back to Henry VIII. They've got the Bishops of Ely, I think, actually own that piece of land. So it was sanctuary for a long time. So when criminals were on the run, they could run into this pub. And it went up, I can't remember when it was, 50, let's say Henry VIII, so it was the 1540s or something, or thereabouts. And they could actually hide away there, and the police couldn't get hold of them, or the police as was back then. Actually, weren't police back then. Because they had sanctuary and they were in this kind of this ground that wasn't actually part of London. It was off territory of somebody else.
Do they have priest holes there in the pub or anything like that? I suppose they might not have needed them if they were.
No, you probably get those in country. Priest holes tend to be more in country houses. But priest holes didn't come in until a lot later. Well, you know this because you read Edmund Campion.
Yes.
That tended. I think that probably came in around about during the reign of Elizabeth. So I think those priest holes. The whole rise of Counter-Reformation and the Jesuits.
You press the panel here and
the thing opened up and some monk with a crucifix would jump out and convert you to Catholicism if you were a Protestant, much as I tried to do.
Yeah. Okay, so now we have a question which I believe is from the legendary Rhys Hughes of
good man. I've always had the greatest respect for him.
Of Swansea, or at least last time I checked.
I stayed with him. He was very kind.
And okay, the question was quite long, so I've shortened it. Why is
about Borges?
Yeah, it is about Borges. It's related to Borges. Why is intellectualism still regarded with suspicion by so many devotees of the weird tale. And he gives the example of Borges as an intellectual writer of weird tales who hasn't had his due, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose he did win some gigantic. I know he didn't win the Nobel Prize, but yeah, Reese is quite right to say that Borges deserves a great deal more respect than in the weird fiction community than he's had up to now. I suppose the Vandermeers did something to correct that in a gigantic anthology, The Weird, which was quite wide-ranging. I don't know. I mean, I suppose one of the reasons is that Borges was very keen on ideas rather than atmosphere, whereas atmosphere tends to be something which crops up in Lovecraft and Poe and Blackwood and Machen. So, but no, I agree completely that he. I mean, he's a great and fantastic, and absolutely one of my favourite writers. So, I'm not sure I can cross swords with Reese and disagree with what he says and pretty much agree with what he says.
But do you have any
reason as to why?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose. Well, I sort of come back to the. Maybe there's just been an emphasis on atmosphere and characterization rather than ideas, which. Well, I agree with the point he makes. I think he does deserve more. I'm not sure I can give a reason why, unless it's failing rather than. So I'm loath to sort of say people who read weird fiction are deficient because they don't appreciate ideas. I mean, I read weird fiction and I do, so maybe not enough. Maybe not enough people do, and hopefully that's changing. It's coming around to that perspective.
Okay. Well, in terms of our written questions, we've come to the end.
Oh.
But
that's good because people are probably desperately bored by now.
Yeah, and we're also past half an hour, and at any moment our takeaway will be delivered, so we'll have to finish anyway. But I thought I might ask maybe one or two more questions. One question is, okay, so while you've been here, we've watched a number of films. So I think you're. Would you say that you're something of a film buff? Would you say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah, I am. I'm kind of. I watch too many horror films for my own good.
Okay. So
you're going to ask me a question about Carnival of Souls?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So not the last film we watched together, but the one before the last we watched together.
Matango.
Well, that was the one we watched last night.
Oh, okay.
But before that, we watched Carnival of Souls.
Carnival of Souls, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of film. Are you influenced by the imagery or
only the high spots? I think Carnival of Souls specifically is a great film, but you judge it on its high spots. There's a lot of stuff that it drags, and there's a lot of bad acting in it. But the imagery, or the imagery, when it does work, and when it actually achieves that sense of the eerie, is absolutely brilliant. So I tend to be quite forgiving of films, really. I mean, I don't actually look at them in terms of the totality all the time. I just think about specific images that I enjoy, and if they hit home and they resonate with me and I remember them, then I tend to be quite forgiving about the parts that don't work, and I'm even quite forgiving about bad acting, because there's a lot of bad acting in Carnival of Souls. But then it was a low budget film, but it's great in its own right. And there's a lot of low budget films there. I mean, even Night of the Living Dead is a really terrible low budget film. I don't think the acting's that great, but the whole vision and the high spots and the way it's survived and carried forward into the culture across the years is absolutely fantastic and brilliant. So I think it's always best in works of art to appreciate the best rather than those moments that don't work very well. Although that's the parts that I tend to remember. Although when I do watch something I haven't watched over a long time and I'm forcing it on people, especially somebody like you, I think, oh my god, I'm putting poor Quentin through some old rubbish that he doesn't want to watch. but then sometimes at the end they say, oh yeah, it was good in part, and then people just tend to remember the good parts, which is all you can hope for.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe the final question, as we're getting on for 35 minutes now. So recently, together, we saw the film Out There. Didn't we?
No.
What?
Not Out There.
Sorry.
You mean Get Out. Get Out.
Sorry. Sorry. I'm playing this. Sorry. Get Out. Yeah, sorry. They both have out in the title.
They do. It's close enough. Yeah.
Anyway.
I liked it. That was great.
Yeah. Okay.
Reminded me of the Stepford Wives. It's really good and extremely clever. And if you haven't, if people haven't seen it, I'm sure most people have seen it, but it's fantastic and it's highly intelligent, highly clever. And then at the end, you come, you run rest of your time, you work back over the ideas that are in there and think that they're. It's the kind of film you want to see a second time around as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, it's only just come out, of course, but I mean, in terms of the, I don't know, tradition of horror films or whatever, do you have some sense of its place?
Stepford Wives, Body Snatchers, brilliantly written, really well directed, a definite warning about putting yourselves in the hands of a hypnotherapist. Definitely. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Well, perhaps we should finish around about here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for watching, and I'm not sure this is the first of a series because I don't want people to see my ugly mug on YouTube too much. But thank you very much, and long live weird fiction.
Okay, and we must try and stop this without deleting it.
No, I think I can do that. Good night, thank you, and it's goodbye. Oh, wait a minute. It's good night from me,
and it's good night from him.
Thank you.